There's a common belief that people get scammed because they're stupid, but that's not true. In fact, some of the people most likely to get scammed are intelligent, educated, and emotionally aware. Because scams rarely target intelligence. They target something much deeper: hope, trust, loneliness, urgency, the need to believe. And once you understand that, you'll realize that getting scammed is often less about what someone knows and more about what they desperately want to be true. Imagine a man sitting alone in his room. Nothing dramatic, just another ordinary evening. His phone vibrates. A message appears. An investment opportunity. A dream job. A beautiful stranger. A once-in-a-lifetime deal. And within seconds, his brain begins writing a story. A story where things finally work out. Where life becomes easier. Where success arrives faster than expected. Where loneliness disappears. And that's the moment the scam begins. Not when money changes hands. Not when passwords are entered. But when emotion becomes stronger than skepticism. Most people imagine scammers as master hackers. But the best scammers are actually psychologists, whether they realize it or not. Because every successful scam follows the same pattern. Find a desire, amplify it, then use it against the person. The victim doesn't buy the scam. They buy the emotion attached to it. The feeling of relief, the feeling of opportunity, the feeling of finally getting what they've been missing. And human beings are surprisingly vulnerable when emotions become involved. Psychologists call this motivated reasoning. It happens when people stop asking, "Is this true?" and start asking, "Can I make myself believe this is true?" That shift sounds small, but it changes everything. Because once a person becomes emotionally invested in an outcome, their brain quietly begins filtering reality. Warning signs become misunderstandings. Red flags become exceptions. Doubt becomes negativity. And logic slowly loses its influence. Not because the person lacks intelligence, because intelligence is now working for desire. Think about romance scams. Many victims know something feels off. The messages seem strange. The stories don't quite add up. The excuses become repetitive. Yet they continue. Why? Because loneliness changes perception. When people feel emotionally deprived long enough, connection starts looking more valuable than certainty. And the human brain will often protect hope before it protects truth. That's a difficult reality to accept, but it explains far more than people realize. The same thing happens with financial scams. Someone promises extraordinary returns, minimal risk, maximum reward, and suddenly skepticism disappears. Not because greed takes over. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of missing the opportunity everyone else seems to be finding. Fear of staying stuck. Modern life intensifies this. Every day we see people displaying success, luxury, freedom, wealth, and eventually some people become desperate for shortcuts. Not because they're lazy, because they're exhausted. And exhausted people are easier to manipulate. There's another psychological trait that scammers love: trust, especially among good people. Many victims are naturally cooperative, helpful, optimistic. They assume others think the way they do. And that assumption becomes dangerous. Because honest people often struggle to imagine dishonest intentions. They project their own values onto strangers. And scammers know it. That's why many scams don't feel aggressive. They feel friendly, helpful, comforting. The scammer becomes the solution before revealing the trap. But perhaps the most dangerous factor is urgency. Because urgency shuts down critical thinking. Notice how many scams create pressure. Act now. Limited time. Your account is at risk. Don't miss this opportunity. The goal isn't to convince you. The goal is to stop you from thinking. Because reflection is the enemy of manipulation. The longer someone thinks, the harder they become to control. So scammers manufacture emotional speed. And emotional speed creates mistakes. What makes this even more fascinating is that nearly everyone believes they would never fall for a scam until the right emotional trigger appears. Loneliness, financial stress, heartbreak, grief, ambition, insecurity. Different people have different vulnerabilities. And scammers don't need all of them. They only need one. One emotional opening. One moment of weakness. One story you desperately want to believe. This is why scam prevention isn't just about knowledge. It's about self-awareness. Understanding your own emotional blind spots. Understanding the desires that can override your judgment. Because the biggest question isn't, could someone trick me? The bigger question is, what emotion could make me ignore the truth? That question changes everything. Because once you know your vulnerabilities, they become harder to exploit. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable lesson of all. The people who get scammed aren't always the least intelligent. Sometimes they're the most hopeful, the most trusting, the most lonely, the most ambitious, the most desperate for life to finally change. Which means the real defense against manipulation isn't becoming cynical. It's becoming conscious. Conscious of your emotions, conscious of your desires, conscious of the stories your mind wants to believe. Because the moment you stop examining your emotions, someone else may start using them against you. And in a world full of people trying to sell you certainty, opportunity, love, status, and success, your greatest protection may not be intelligence at all. It may be the ability to pause and ask a simple question. Do I believe this because it's true, or because I need it to be?